The stage lights were bright, almost blinding, as they always were during auditions. Thousands had already passed through these doors, each carrying dreams that sometimes felt bigger than the room itself. By the time the producers called out the next contestant's name, the judges were visibly tired. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He had heard it all before. Or at least, he thought he had. The boy walking onto the stage looked impossibly small beneath the massive LED screens. His name was Miguel Santos, age 14, from a small coastal town in the Philippines. His clothes were neat but clearly worn, shoes polished carefully as if he knew this moment might be his only chance. He smiled nervously, bowing slightly in the polite way his parents had taught him. The audience gave a soft, polite clap, the kind reserved for contestants no one expects much from. Simon glanced down at his notes. Elvis Presley, he said, eyebrow raised. There was a pause that felt heavy. Singing Elvis was risky. Many had tried. Most failed. Some embarrassed themselves badly. Simon's face tightened, not cruel, just cautious. He had seen dreams shatter on this stage before. Miguel nodded. His voice was quiet when he spoke. English was not his first language, but his pronunciation was careful. He explained that his father used to play old Elvis records every Sunday morning. Their house was small, and the sound would drift out into the street. That was how he learned every word, every note. It wasn't from lessons or training. It was from love. There was something in the way he said it that made the room lean in just a little closer. The music started. At first, nothing happened. Miguel stood still, hands shaking slightly at his sides. Then he took a breath and began to sing. The sound that came out of him did not belong to a nervous 14-year-old boy. It was deep, rich, textured with emotion far beyond his years. The timbre carried warmth and ache, a haunting echo of Elvis himself, but not an imitation. It was something more honest. Something alive. The audience gasped almost as one. Simon Cowell's arms slowly uncrossed. Miguel sang as if the room did not exist. His eyes closed, and suddenly he was back home, standing in their tiny living room, the smell of rice cooking in the kitchen, his father humming along softly. The judges faded away. The cameras disappeared. All that mattered was the song. Halfway through the first verse, the backing track seemed unnecessary. His voice filled every corner of the auditorium. Some people in the crowd were already wiping tears from their eyes, not fully understanding why. It wasn't just the voice. It was the truth behind it. Simon leaned forward. This was the moment that shocked everyone. Simon Cowell, known for his brutal honesty and quick dismissals, was completely still. No tapping pen. No sarcastic smile. Just silence. His eyes were locked on Miguel, and for the first time that day, he looked genuinely stunned. The first twist came when Miguel reached the chorus. Instead of staying safe, he took a risk, adding a subtle Filipino vocal run that blended seamlessly into the Elvis melody. It was unexpected, bold, and beautiful. A fusion of cultures, of generations, of a boy honoring his roots while standing on a global stage. The audience erupted into applause before the song even ended. Miguel finished on a long, trembling note that hung in the air like a held breath. Then silence. A silence so deep it felt sacred. And then the room exploded. People jumped to their feet. Cheers thundered from every direction. The camera caught Simon Cowell still seated, staring ahead as if he needed a second to process what had just happened. Finally, slowly, he stood up. That alone sent the crowd into another frenzy. Simon walked closer to the edge of the table, his voice unusually soft when he spoke. He said he had heard Elvis songs sung by professionals, by legends, by people who built entire careers on copying that sound. But he had never heard it sung like that by someone so young, with such honesty and restraint. Then came the second twist. Simon asked Miguel to sing again. Not because he doubted him, but because he wanted to hear him without music. No safety net. No backing track. The audience held its breath. Miguel nodded, swallowed hard, and began again. Without the music, his voice sounded even more raw. You could hear every emotion, every breath. It was as if he was singing directly to each person in the room. Even the camera crew seemed frozen. By the end, there were people openly crying in the audience. One of the judges admitted that she felt like she had just witnessed the beginning of something historic. But the biggest shock was still coming. Simon asked Miguel why he chose Elvis instead of a modern pop star. Miguel hesitated, then explained that his father had passed away 2 years earlier. Elvis was the last thing they shared. Singing these songs made him feel close to him again. He said this stage was not about winning. It was about honoring his father's memory. The room fell silent once more. Simon turned away briefly, clearing his throat. He then said something no one expected. He said that moments like this were why the show existed. Not for fame, not for ratings, but for stories that reminded the world of humanity. Miguel received a unanimous yes. Backstage, producers whispered that this audition would go viral. And they were right. Within hours, clips of the performance flooded social media across the United States. Americans who had grown up listening to Elvis with their grandparents shared the video with captions like, "This brought me back," and, "Music has no borders." But the story didn't end there. As the competition continued, Miguel faced challenges. Critics questioned whether he was just a one-song wonder. Some said the Elvis magic would fade. Others doubted a boy from a small Filipino town could survive the pressure of international fame. Then came the live shows. Miguel chose another Elvis song, but this time he rearranged it entirely. Slower, darker, more intimate. The risk was enormous. If it failed, it could destroy everything. It didn't. It elevated him. Simon admitted on live television that Miguel had changed his mind about what young artists were capable of. He said age meant nothing when talent and truth walked hand in hand. The final twist came in the finale. Miguel didn't sing Elvis. He sang an original song. A song he wrote about a boy listening to records with his father, dreaming of a stage he had never seen. The lyrics were simple, but devastating. The melody carried echoes of Elvis, Filipino folk music, and something entirely his own. By the final note, the audience was standing again, applause lasting nearly 5 minutes. Miguel didn't win first place. But it didn't matter. Record labels reached out. Legends praised him. More importantly, people around the world felt seen through his story. A boy from the Philippines reminded America that music is not about perfection. It is about connection. Simon Cowell later said in an interview that Miguel's audition was one of the few moments in his career that genuinely shocked him. Not because of technical brilliance alone, but because it reminded him why he fell in love with music in the first place. And somewhere, in a small coastal town, a boy's dream became a bridge between cultures, generations, and hearts.